Hey hey hey. And here we are again in the world of Blenderism. In the third episode, together with you, we will create a 3D model of a car, a vintage beauty Mercedes-Benz Roadster K500 1936 release. YouTube channel Blenderism crossed the line of 200 subscribers. This is of course not so much, but I am still grateful to you. This became possible only thanks to you. So thank you. Well, I suggest getting to work. The first thing I want to do today is a vertical stripe that goes from the hood along the body. That is, we will work with the topology, or as it is called, the mesh grid. To begin with, I carry out preparatory work to strengthen the grid around the area where I will make a stripe in the body. Using loop cuts and a knife tool, I add additional edge. Next, when the grid is ready, I select two vertices that need to be connected. Using the J button, I use it because at the intersection of the edges it creates additional vertices, thus creating a stable topology. And in order to divide the strip into two, I use the Ctrl-B combination. And so when this line is ready, without cancelling the selection, press the E button and press the face inside the car. And so we get such a strip. Now we need to refine it a little. For this you need to move one vertex to the side, and delete those edges that interfere. Now the thing is that the solidify modifier needs to be set to a smaller value, and then the thickness of the body will be correct. But because we changed the thickness, we need to make sure that the width of our strip is appropriate. So good, now we can move on to the hood, go to edit mode, and we need to tighten the vertices a little. And also add one loop cut across, which will create the necessary rigidity of the part. After that, step by step, carefully move the vertices so that all the edges between the hood and the body match and the model looks clear. Now if you look at this angle, it is obvious that one more edge is missing. And so we add another loop cut. And in order to place it correctly, the Edge Flow add-on will help us. This is a free add-on, you can download it from the internet. It helps to work with topology. And so we press the right mouse button and select Set Flow. With the help of this tool, we arrange the edges in a certain order, or rather, we placed the edge between two adjacent edges. And then we move the vertices a little manually, in order to create a certain shape. It's not scary that they are unevenly located, since the next Set Linear tool will straighten them. Next, we move the vertices again so that they coincide with the body. And once again we apply Set Linear. And so we can see that our hood has taken the desired shape. It remains to refine the vertices a little. Okay, we're good, let's go on. Next, you need to correct the topology of the door. Here I will show you more clearly how this Edge Flow tool works. Make sure that you have the Edge Flow add-on enabled. After installation, you can find it in the settings under this name. We go to the editing mode and see that the door topology is far from ideal. And so note that the edge mode must be enabled. Now with the Alt button pressed, select the edges we want to edit. Press the right mouse button and select Set Linear, and whoosh, it becomes straight. As for me, a very convenient tool. Next, select an edge that is obviously not in the middle between the neighboring ones, and select the Set Flow tool. It positions the edge like this. But you need to correct the vertex. Here is another example of how the Set Flow tool works. I selected a number of edges that are obviously crooked in relation to each other. I apply the Set Flow tool to them and whoosh, they become a smooth slope. For greater effect, you can add the number of iterations in the small menu on the left. Now we move on to creating moldings on the car door sill, in the place where the foot steps when a person gets in or out of the car. The Almighty Cube will help us with this. Add it to the scene, reduce it in size, and stretch it along the length. It needs to be transformed in size so that it fits opposite the door. But the thing is that the car's door sills are not straight, they are slightly curved. At this point, the lattice grid will help us. With its help, we will bend the molding. Add it to the scene and reduce it to the size of the molding, but so that it protrudes slightly beyond its edges. Now in the lattice grid settings, you need to change the resolution of the perpendicular and longitudinal stripes. Well, and make sure that our grid is not a cube but a plane. Now in order not to edit the appearance of the molding already on the car, I recommend giving it the desired look right away. Do not forget to apply the scale, and after that you can add the bevel modifier to round the corners. We apply Shade Smooth and you can check the box next to Harden Normals in the Shading tab. Another important point is that in order to bend the molding, you need to add loop cuts to it in the places where it should bend. And so we press the key combination Ctrl+R and use the mouse wheel to adjust the quantity. I also add another longitudinal loop cut and immediately use the Ctrl+B combination to divide it into two and give it a rounded shape at the edges. Now you need to select the molding, and lastly, select the grid and press the Ctrl+P combination to set the parent, and in the menu we select Lattice Deform. Next, for the grid, we need to apply the Shrink Wrap modifier and specify the car body as an object, so blenders will understand that the grid needs to be superimposed on the car body. In the modifier settings, you need to replace the overlay method with the project, set the Z-axis since we are superimposing the molding on top. Check the box next to negative. And thus we superimpose the molding on the car body. Now the thing is that the car's door sill is very rounded. I divided the rib into two parts near the rear wheel arch, and on the front wheel arch I already had edges. And so I combine them with the J button, and it is necessary to move these edges to the edge. By double-clicking the G button, this function helps to move the vertices along the edges, without retreating to the sides. Well, that's good. Now you can select the molding and the grid and copy them a couple of times. If you look at the reference, you can see that the car has two long moldings and one short one. Therefore, one of them needs to be reduced in length. Here it is ready, you can start making the door handle. A cylinder will help us in this matter, but in the small menu on the left, you need to set the number of vertices to 8, in order to make it easier to work. We reduce the cylinder. Turn it in our direction. Now two side faces can be extruded along the Y-axis. Add one loop cut in the center. Next, align the vertices using the combination SY0 and so the vertices become in one row. Next, use the combination Ctrl+B to divide it into two. Now I sleep a little with it along the Z-axis and add longitudinal loop cuts. Select the octagonal face and extrude it twice along the X-axis to make the handle mount. Stretch the outer face along the Z-axis and in the center add more loop cuts and reduce their diameter. As we can see, the handle turned out to be a little wide. I suggest fixing this. Now, by lightly pressing the Ctrl+2 combination, add subdivision to the subdivision twice. And the handle already takes on a good appearance, but it still needs to be improved. I want to add small indentations in the fastening part and in places where the handle should rotate. I raise the central edge loops on the handle a little up to give it the appearance of an arc, and flatten the outer ones. Now we can make it so that the handle is a little thicker in the center than in other places. Let's also make a round depression where the handle connects to the mount. In such small details, the whole point, they give realism. It is better to spend a little more time, but be sure that the element looks good. And so now we can attach it to the body. Of course, I could just tuck it, but I suggest using the shrink wrap modifier. Since there is also a small bend in that place on the body, and I try to do it so that it looks good. Therefore, we add the lattice grid and reduce it to the size of the handle. We adjust the resolution amount, set the parent for the handle. After that, you can apply the shrink wrap modifier. Adjust the dimensions a little and the handle is ready. So good, let's now quickly make the door hinges. It's easy. Add a cylinder, reduce the size. Press / to go into isolation mode, and for the upper face of the cylinder use insert, to add an edge loop. Extrude twice along the Z-axis. Select the side faces and extrude them to the sides in a circle. The door hinge is ready, all that remains is to adjust its dimensions, install it in place and copy it, since there should be 2 of them. Let's make sure they're in place. Let's look at them from a different angle, install them here, and that's it. Very good, we've dealt with the door hinges, now we can move on to the rear lights. That's how interestingly stylized they should turn out. I suggest we start creating them. I switch to the top view by lightly pressing the 7 button on the numpad and add a circle mesh to the scene. Now I can go into edit mode, turn on work with vertices, press the A button to select them all, then press ES and extrude the edges inward. Next, you need to switch to working with faces, select everything and extrude along the Z-axis up. Now you need to select 4 faces left, right, top and bottom. And then extrude them up along the Z-axis. Next, add 4 loop cuts inside and 4 loop cuts outside the part. Then add 3 loop cuts in a circle. To create the surface of the rear light glass, add another loop cut and extrude it inwards, then fill the circle with the F button. To create the outline, which will contain the Mercedes logo, add a loop cut that allows us to select faces in a circle to extrude them upwards along the Z-axis. For the stability of the mesh grid, add edge loops where they are needed. Now you can use the Ctrl 2 combination to add subdivision, and also use Shade Smooth. Here, the detail is almost ready, we just need to copy the Mercedes logo from the main icon. To do this, go to Edit Mode and press the L button to select the detail. Copy and separate it. Then lightly press Shift S to move the selection to the cursor. To start working with the logo, you need to set the origin point in the center of the geometry and then the logo can be rotated, it is more convenient. After that, the logo can be installed in its place, it may be necessary to increase the height of the outline. Well, at the end of working with the rear headlight, you need to bind the logo to the headlight housing. Select the logo and then the housing and press the Ctrl P combination and choose to set the parent object. Keep transform. Well, since we're done with that, we can move on to the elongated funny rear light. We'll model it using the Almighty Cube. Add it to the scene, reduce its size and add subdivision to it. Let's try to model it right in the place where it should be installed, and rotate it a little along the X-axis. And by double-clicking Z we can move it along the Z-axis of the object. Not the global coordinate system. Now we'll add loop cuts to it and stretch it to the desired shape. To be more precise, this is not a rear light, but its mount. Now we can add another Almighty Cube, reduce it to the size of the headlight and add subdivision using Ctrl 3. With the number of divisions 3. Now we need to add 2 loop cuts and stretch along the X-axis. We simply reduce the rear face, this will give the desired shape. And to the front face we use an insert to make a more right angle. Now you can rotate the camera, look at different angles, make sure that the dimensions are right and place the tail light as required, because now we will combine the parts. First, select the tail light, then the mount and press Ctrl J. Thus, the tail light takes on the modifiers that were on the mount, or rather adds a bevel. And so you need to go into edit mode and clear the sharp ones. Next, press 3 and go to the face mode, select 2 faces, press the right mouse button and select bridge faces in the menu. And whoosh, we have a smooth transition. So good, now we can make recesses for the reverse light, brake and side lights. A cylinder will help us with this, add it to the scene, reduce it and rotate it along the X-axis. Apply Shade Smooth and Array modifier to it. You also need to change it to constant offset. And choose the appropriate cylinder size and the distance between them, so that the 3 cylinders fit evenly. Now first select the cylinders and then the rear light and press Ctrl-, which will apply Boolean to them. But for the surface to look good, bevel should be at the bottom of the modifiers. And we still have to set the depth by moving the grid, but something tells me that I will return to this issue. When we are ready, we can convert the taillight to a mesh, so as not to apply modifiers one by one. And the grille can be deleted. Next, I suggest making glasses right away. Go to edit mode, select the inner edge loop, copy it Shift D and separate it by pressing the P button, and then by selection. Now in object mode, you need to fill the circle using the grid fill tool. Next, select the central vertex, turn on proportional transformation, stretch the vertex a little and adjust the circle so that we get a lens. Apply Shade Smooth. And do not forget to align the outer row of vertices, as practice shows they usually shift. And for now, we do not need the mirror modifier. And so we put the glass in its place. And we need the array modifier. Again, switch to constant offset and with the shift pressed, for smooth movements, put the adjacent glass and turn on the third. And now you can apply the mirror modifier and make glasses on the other side. Here's another example of how the edge flow add-on works. I noticed that the car body could be smoother. And here I selected the edges to which I want to apply edge flow. And whoosh. Now it looks much better, I just need to correct few vertices. And so we move on to a rather difficult moment, to the creation of side moldings. The difficulty is that, they not only go through half the car, but also pass into the windshield and headlights. So you'll have to make some effort. I took aim a little and it seemed to me that starting from the middle would be just right. For this, I used the edges that I already had and had to add an additional one. This gave me the opportunity to select the faces that need to be extruded along the x-axis. But after this, the molding looks quite blurry, and in order to give it more clarity, you need to add several loop cuts. I did not use shrink wrap, since further the same molding will be both on the side and on top of the body. And it will not be very convenient to use it, and the effect should be the same everywhere. In general, I decided to extrude the faces. One by one, carefully, adjusting the vertices, we get this result, and now the rear molding. Go to Edit mode and use the K key to select the knife. This is a very convenient tool in Blender for me. Saves time and effort. Well, actually, we start cutting in those places where the molding should go. In parallel, correcting and connecting the vertices in those places where it is required. Do not be afraid to do something wrong, you can always roll back with the combination Ctrl-Z. Well, do not forget to save. And also, since this part goes through half of the car, make sure that the body is as ready as possible for this, since it will be more difficult to fix something later. When we have finished cutting the edges, we need to select all the faces of the future molding and extrude them along the normal, using the combination of Alt-E, since we cannot simply extrude along one of the axes. And so now we check what we got and notice the fact that the smoothness on the body has disappeared. This is due to the fact that additional edges have been added. In general, see how this can be fixed, you need to optimize the grid. So we got a lot of vertices in one place. We need to reduce their number by dissolving and by merging in the center. Nothing super complicated. It remains to combine a few more vertices using J and whoosh, and it is already much better. Isn't it? Now we need to finish here, near the door. For some reason, Blender doesn't want to do a full height loop cut, so you have to use a knife to add vertices and then combine them. It often helps out. Well, that's good, now we can proceed to the front part of the molding. And so now pay attention to what form needs to be created. This molding smoothly passes into the windshield frame. A very interesting moment. And so I suggest we proceed. To do this, go to the editing mode. And using the knife tool, start cutting where the edges will pass. The first steps should be made at the junction of the two parts of the molding, so that the connection is clear, so that the vertices are next to those on the door. And then using the same knife, we will stretch a straight line from the center of the car. With these movements, we create a general outline of the entire part. Now we need to move the vertices so as to create the inner part of the frame, but we are missing one vertex to close the perimeter. We need to subdivide the edge in half, place this vertex opposite the molding on the door and combine it with the rest. We correct the vertices a little and select the faces that we want to extrude. And use the combination Alt-E to extrude faces along normals. When we have extruded the faces, we again come across the fact that the edge is not clear. Therefore, it is necessary to add more edges along the perimeter of the molding. And here again this wonderful tool, the knife, comes to our rescue. With its help, we add grid elements where we need them with light movements. It is cool, easy and fast. It remains to work on small details so that everything is beautiful, but I think you can handle it yourself. Somewhere move the vertices, somewhere add edges for clarity. And so, you and I are great guys and moving at a breakneck speed. Now let's make a frame for the glass. And so to do this, we select the face from which we will extrude the frame element, and using the E button, extrude it along the Z-axis upwards. And immediately, without removing the selection, press the SZ0 combination to align the face along the Z-axis. Now you can move this face along the Y-axis a little and add several loop cuts that also need to be aligned along the Z-axis. Now let's make a mount for the side lamp. Here are approximately the same actions as with the frame. Select the face from which this mount will come out and extrude it along the X-axis, using the SX0 combination. Align it along the X-axis. Then add one loop cut, which we move back to the body. Now we select both of them, the face and the loop cut, and reduce the diameter. you can shorten the mount a little. And now we add another loop cut, which gives us the ability to select the top face and extrude it up along the Z-axis. Now we can take the body from the front headlight, copy it and move it to our mount. Now we need to make a kind of adapter mount for the headlight. We go into the editing mode and select the 4 faces that we need to copy and separate from the body and headlights. We set the origin point in the center of the geometry of the new part, then in the editing mode we select all the vertices and extrude them down and along the Z-axis. Now we need to delete the lower face, and for this, for the stability of the topology, I add several loop cuts. Now we prepare the counterpart with which we will combine the adapter. We need to make sure that the number of vertices on both parts is the same, then the bridge between them will be created without problems. First, we combine the 2 parts using Ctrl+J, and then in the editing mode we select the edges that we want to combine with a bridge. And here is the part we got. It remains to delete. It has everything that we do not need. We use the combination SZ0 to align the edges along the Z-axis. And now we can correct the shapes of the adapter. For this we imagine the headlight housing, make sure that it does not protrude inward, for which we can correct the vertices from the outside, so that the adapter fits neatly against the headlight housing. Now there is one point that needs to be corrected on all headlight housings. It's good that there are only a few of them. We need to make a thing that you see in the reference. The thing is that they have old-style bulbs, and they are quite voluminous. And to do this, we need to lengthen the back of the headlight housing. But this is a small problem, we will quickly deal with it now. We select 16 square faces in the back of the headlight housing and press the right button. Using the Loop Tools tool, select Circle. This way, our square turns into a circle. Now we need to extrude it along the Y-axis, and then again, but slightly. Now we select the faces that turned out to be in a circle and use the combination Alt-E, in order to extrude faces along normals. And in order to align the outermost faces, we select and use the combination SY0. And this is the thing we got. Well, since we are already working on the headlights, I suggest running a little ahead. We need to make a small round contour that will imitate the thickness of the glass. For this we go into the headlight housing editing mode, select the edge loop, copy it and separate it from the part, using the path we already know. Now in the object mode we select the vertices of the resulting circle and extrude them inward. And since this was a part of the headlight housing, all the necessary modifiers are already on it, so we just need to correct the dimensions a little and push it inward a little. Well, actually, these 2 parts need to be added to each of the headlights. Okay, let's look at the reference what the next element looks like. Now we can conclude that we need to change the appearance of the car body a little so that we can continue creating a frame for the windshield. We need to make room for the central pillar of the frame. And so go to Edit mode and press button 7 on the numpad to switch to the top view. We need to move these 3 vertices a little along the Y-axis. But not just move them, but at a slight angle. Next, add one loop cut, which will give us the opportunity to work with the face. Select it and then press the I button to apply insert. Now add 2 loop cuts to enhance the topology. After which we can select the edge loop and press the Ctrl B combination to split the edge into two. Next, switch to working with faces and extrude them down along the Z-axis. Honestly, I don't know what kind of part this is, either an air intake or a cabin air filter, I don't know for sure. But it is in the reference. So good, let's continue. Now the central pillar of the frame. In order to make a base for it, I subdivide the edge on one side and the edge on the other side, after which you can connect the vertices with the J button. Next, select the faces that you want to extrude and use the E button to extrude them along the Z-axis up. In this place we have an unnecessary face, it needs to be deleted. Now I select the vertices in its place and align them along the Y-axis, using the combination SY0. Now we can reduce this edge a little. Due to the fact that we moved the vertices in the body mesh, we now need to fix the hood topology. We select the vertex groups and move them along the Y-axis and arrange them so as to create a new optimized topology. And also in parallel with this, we need to create a molding in the center of the hood, across its entire length, so that it looks like a continuation of the central pillar of the glass frame. So we add another loop cut and dock it to the pillar. Now we can select the faces that we just created and extrude them up along the Z-axis. Let's go to the conscious vertices and align them along the Y-axis using the combination SY0. With the Alt key pressed, select the upper face and make it as similar as possible to the molding of the glass frame pillar. Then, with the Alt key pressed, we correct its edge. Let's go to the top view and correct the edge of the entire hood. With the Alt key pressed, we select those that are out of place and use the edge flow tools on them. It places them in the middle between two adjacent ones. This relieves the tension in the specific faces of the topology. Let's finish working with the molding, or rather, it is necessary to set the merge value in the mirror modifier to a low enough value of 0.0005, and there is a reason for this, which I will now show you how to fix. The thing is that if you go to the top view and select the largest part of the car, that is, the body. Press the N button to call the menu on the right and go to the object settings there, and if you look at the size of the body, then the Y value is less than 3M, and this is very small, so I will set it to 4.5. In order to do this correctly, I change the transform pivot point to a 3D cursor, and I will also hide the references for now. Now I select everything with the A button and increase the size. This method works quite often, but it all depends on many factors and modifiers that we apply to our model. Well, we can continue, there should not be such problems with very small values. We need to finish working with the molding, for this we select the vertex and extrude it along the X-axis. We subdivide the resulting edge twice and we can combine the vertices from right to left. Here is such a smooth finish to the molding we got. Now we return to the central pillar of the frame. First, we will correct two vertices to align them. Next, select faces from above and extrude them up along the Z-axis, press the E button. Then move them along the Y-axis to set them parallel to the rest of the pillars. Now I want to give the central pillars a shape similar to a triangle. For this I go into edit mode and select the most central vertices and shift them along the Y-axis. This seemed to me not enough, so I add another loop cut, but half of the vertices from this selection need to be removed. and also shift them along the y-axis. With such movements, I slightly damaged the topology, but it is not scary, it would be easy to fix. With the Alt pressed, select the edge loop and you need to cancel the selections to those that are rounded. And then we go to the Edge Flow add-on and find Set Linear in the menu. Whoosh, and it's good, so now let's make the windshield. We go into the editing mode and find the edge loop, which most reminds us of the shape of the windshield. We copy it with the Shift-D combination and separate it from the part by pressing the P button and select by selection. Next, we need to switch to the object mode, select the newly created edge loop and in the editing mode, extrude the vertices up along the Z-axis, then shift them along the Y-axis. Now, to begin with, we will manually arrange the vertices so that the windshield looks like an arc, and matches the pillars. Now, with a slight movement, I select all the central edges and apply the Edge Flow tool to them, which gives us a wonderful result. Now we correct one vertex, and then select all the upper vertices and adjust the windshield in height. Now, we need to correct the central pillar, because it does not match the reference. It should be smooth, so this step needs to be removed. We do this by merge in center vertices. As it turned out, one of the loop cuts needs to be dissolved. So good. Now if you look at the outer pillars, they have plugs on top, well, or imitation plugs. Let's add one loop cut, make sure it is horizontal with the combination SY0, then use Ctrl B to split it into two. And we can extrude inward with the combination ES. And we are good. Next I suggest you make another logo, as you can see in the reference. Quite an interesting way, but for this we need a vector file with this logo, which I will attach in the description. There will be a link to Google Drive where you can download it for free. But first, you need to prepare a place where we will install it. There is nothing complicated here. Go to the body editing mode, select a number of vertices that need to be extruded down the Z-axis. Then combine the three remaining vertices. And that's it, the platform for the logo is ready. Now go to File, then Import, and select a file with the extension .svg, this is a vector file. So good, the file was added, but it flew under our car. Let's get it out of there and delete the plane, we don't need it. And now look at the beauty of working with vector files, we extrude the logo with one easy movement. Also let's give it a little bevel like 0.001, and also we need to make some kind of base or substrate on which our logo will be located. Place the cursor in the center of the object and add a mesh circle. Go to Edit mode and extrude the vertices inward, but not completely. And we fill the remaining circle with grid fill. Now, with Alt pressed, I select the extreme vertices and extrude them down along the Z-axis, and now we can fill the circle in the same way, with grid fill. It gives a stable topology. Press Ctrl 1 to add a subdivision. And after that, you need to add a few edge loops on the sides and on top to restore the appearance of the part. Now you can apply Shade Smooth. We bind our logo to the substrate and now it can be rotated and moved. And in order to install it in place, you need to use the lattice grid. Add it to the scene, reduce its size, make a plane out of it, increase the resolution. And now we need to match it as much as possible with the logo size and place it clearly behind the logo. Now we select the vector logo and the background we created and transform them into a mesh. Now you can press the Ctrl P combination and select the deform lattice. I compress the grill along the Z-axis slightly. And I set the offset value to -0.0005 in order to slightly push the grill inside the body. And here is the logo ready. And let's make another one right away, only with the inscription Mercedes, and place it on the side near the door. Click on the file and then import and select the file with the SVG extension. Delete the plane that is added along with the file. Take the logo itself out from under the car, turn it towards us. Now go to the settings and extrude by 0.005 mm. Pay attention, there is a separate small part in the logo and it needs to be extruded separately. Now set the origin point to the center of the geometry, on both parts. Press the Shift+S button combination, to place the 3D cursor in the center of the part and add a lattice. Rotate it 90 degrees and increase the resolution. Now you need to make sure that the lattice matches the dimensions of the logo as much as possible. We convert both parts into a mesh so that they have a grid and can be bent. Next, select the grill last and press Ctrl P to assign it as a parent. Place the logo closer to the body so as not to miss. And so after that we can add a shrink-wrap modifier to the grill and select the car body as an object. So good, now we can add a mirror modifier, since the logo should be on both sides. And don't forget about the small part in the logo, it also needs to be reflected to the other side. Excellent, now we move on to making the handle, and part-time molding on the trunk of the car. Here we can use a lattice, since the trunk is almost flat and this is a separate detail. To do this, we add the almighty cube to the scene. Let's immediately reduce its size. Go to edit mode and add a loop cut, since it will need to be bent. The very top point should be a little wider because there will be a handle there. select two faces that need to be extruded upward along the Z-axis. Then select the faces opposite each other and click to build a bridge between them. Add subdivision by pressing Ctrl 2. Now some vertices need to be combined to chamfer the corners. It may be necessary to add an additional edge loop where required. Somewhere make it a little wider, somewhere narrower. And then, according to the known scheme, add a lattice, make a plane out of it, increase the resolution and adjust the size to fit the detail. I also noticed that the cube was added at a slight angle. Therefore, you need to reset the rotation by pressing Alt-R. Now we place the lattice below the part clearly. Now we can parent the molding to lattice using Ctrl P. Well, as soon as we did this, our part surface changed. In order to fix this, you need to put the lattice modifier in first place. So, you can add the shrink wrap modifier and select the trunk as an object. And now our molding fits neatly against the trunk. Let's move it a little and it needs to be reflected to the other side using the mirror modifier. Here we have the same problem, the lattice modifier needs to be put in first place. And also on the trunk there is a molding in the center, but we will do it in the same way, by extruding faces. Therefore, we go into the editing mode, press the K button and select the knife tool. We make a neat surgical incision, but it should not be even, wider at the top and narrower at the bottom. Now we select the faces that we cut out and extrude them along the Z-axis upwards. Now we need to add several loop cuts in order to more clearly highlight the molding. At the bottom I will leave it rounded, and at the top I want it to go clearly along the edge. Therefore, we need to add a loop cut. Now in this central molding, I want to make a small depression or pit, as it is better to call it. But first we need to go to the mirror modifier and set the merge value to 0.001. And so we go into edit mode, select the faces that I want to edit, and press the insert button. But the thing is that you need to press the B button in order to press against one of the sides. Boundary specifies whether the open edges will be inserted. Well, now we can press the E button to extrude down the Z-axis. Thank you very much to everyone who watched up to this point, you guys are really cool. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something useful. If you want to support the author with a penny, there is a link to Patreon in the description. And if you don't have this opportunity, then at least like and write a comment, please. Check if you are subscribed. Well, as always, learn hotkeys, they will make your life easier. Take your time, try different settings and pray for Ukraine. Thanks, bye.